The deep space around Station Orpheus was silent, except for the faint hum of engines from ships docking and leaving. Among the many vessels that arrived that day was a small, worn transport ship called Starling's Echo. Its metal hull was scratched from years of travel, and its engines wheezed like an old animal. Inside, Zara sat at the controls. She was a Velnari, a tall, slender alien with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Her people were wanderers, never staying in one place for long. They lived in cold ships, moving from system to system, trading what they could and avoiding attachments. Zara had never had a home. She had never slept in a soft bed. In her world, rest meant lying on a thin mat, wrapped in a thermal sheet, while the ship's cold metal floor pulled the heat from her body. Warmth was a rare luxury. Her ship's energy cells were failing, and she had no choice but to stop at the human-run trade hub. She had heard about humans before, strange beings who smiled at strangers and built places that felt alive. Zara didn't quite understand them. To her, survival meant keeping to yourself and never showing weakness. As she docked, her ship connected with the station's airlock. The door hissed open, and warm air rushed in. She paused for a moment, surprised. Even the air here felt different, gentler somehow. She stepped onto the station's main walkway, where lights glowed in warm colors. The sound of chatter, footsteps, and distant music filled the air. People of many species walked around, but she quickly noticed that humans were everywhere. They spoke with energy, laughed easily, and moved like they belonged. Zara tightened her coat around herself and headed toward the marketplace. She needed spare parts for her ship, specifically a new plasma coil and 2 energy converters. Without them, her ship wouldn't make it through another journey. The marketplace was busy. Vendors called out their offers. Machines hummed. The scent of cooked food drifted through the air. Zara found the shop she was looking for and purchased the parts, but they were heavy. The plasma coil alone was nearly the size of her torso, and she had to carry it carefully. As she struggled to lift it, a voice spoke from behind her. "Need a hand?" She turned and saw a young human man with dark hair, a tool belt around his waist, and a friendly expression. His eyes crinkled slightly as he smiled. "I can manage," Zara replied, though her arms trembled slightly under the weight. "Sure you can," the human said, stepping forward. "But you don't have to." Before she could object, he had taken the coil from her arms as if it weighed nothing. Zara frowned. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." He shrugged. "Because it looks like you could use a break." "Name's Evan." Zara hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Zara." They walked together down the busy walkway toward the docking bays. Zara noticed that Evan didn't just walk quickly to get the job done. He slowed his pace to match hers. Humans were strange. No one in her crew would ever slow down for someone else unless it was for survival. When they reached her ship, Evan placed the coil inside the cargo hold. He glanced around the small, dim interior and raised an eyebrow. "This is cozy," he said carefully. Zara almost laughed. "That is one word for it." "You staying here tonight?" he asked. "Yes. Where else would I stay?" she replied, confused. He tilted his head. "There's a rest sector on the station. Warm rooms. Real beds." Zara shook her head. "I don't need such things. My people travel light. Comfort is not a priority." Evan looked at her for a moment, then said, "Well, comfort's kind of a priority for humans. A warm place. To sleep keeps you strong. Helps you think clearly." She didn't answer. It sounded almost foolish to her, spending resources just for softness and warmth. But Evan didn't leave. He seemed to study her tired expression, the slight slump of her shoulders. "Tell you what," he said, "my quarters have a guest bed. It's just sitting there. You can use it tonight." Zara blinked in surprise. "Why would you do that?" grinned. Because you look like someone who's been sleeping on cold floors for too long, and because, well, it's what humans do. For a long moment, she considered refusing. Her people didn't accept such offers. Accepting meant trusting, and trust was dangerous. But there was something in Evan's voice, steady, warm, that made her curious. "Just for one night," she said at last. "Deal," he replied. Evan led her through the station to a quieter section. His quarters were small but bright, with shelves full of tools and books. In the corner stood a bed with thick blankets, a pillow, and a faint hum from a built-in heater. Zara stepped closer, almost cautiously. The blankets looked soft, like the clouds she had seen on Earth from space. "It's yours for tonight," Evan said. "I'll take the couch." She touched the blanket. Warmth spread through her fingers. She had never felt anything like it. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. "Thank you," she finally whispered. Evan just smiled. "Get some rest, Zara. You've earned it." As she lay down that night, the warmth surrounded her. It felt strange, almost overwhelming, but in a good way. The cold metal of her ship was far away. For the first time in her life, Zara fell, asleep in comfort. She didn't know it yet, but that single night would change the course of her journey forever. When Zara opened her eyes, she didn't know where she was for a moment. The air was warm, and the faint hum of the heater filled the quiet room. A soft blanket was draped over her, and she could still feel the comfort of the bed beneath her. For a few seconds, she just lay there, letting the warmth sink into her skin. It was such a new feeling that she didn't want to move. In her own ship, she usually woke up to the sound of rattling metal, the chill of the floor, and the dim blue light from the control panels. But here it felt like the station itself was protecting her. She sat up slowly, her silver eyes scanning the room. On the other side, Evan was at a small desk, working on something with a set of tools. He noticed her movement and looked over with a smile. "Morning," he said. Zara hesitated before replying. "It is pleasant here." "That's the idea," Evan replied. He set down his tools and leaned back in his chair. "Sleep well?" "Yes," she said simply. "It was unusual. My body feels lighter. My head feels clear." Evan grinned. "That's what happens when you actually rest. You've been running on low energy for too long." Zara tilted her head. "And you believe this comfort makes you stronger?" "Absolutely," Evan said. "Warmth, food, a place to relax, it keeps your mind sharp. My dad used to say, a rested engineer makes fewer mistakes." She thought about that for a moment. In her culture, being strong meant pushing through discomfort. They believed that too much ease made a person weak. But maybe there was another way to be strong. Evan stood and stretched. "Come on. I'll show you the station while your ship's getting worked on." Zara followed him through the corridors. The station was busy but organized. Vendors shouted. Prices, humans, and aliens alike moved from shop to shop, and somewhere in the distance, music played. It was all so alive. Evan stopped by a small cafe where the smell of fresh food filled the air. "You eaten yet?" he asked. "I had ration cubes yesterday," Zara said. Evan made a face. "Ration cubes aren't food. Sit." She sat at a round table while Evan ordered 2 plates of something steaming and fragrant. When the plates arrived, Zara looked at hers curiously. It was some kind of bread filled with vegetables and melted cheese. "It's called a melt," Evan explained. "Humans make a lot of bread. We're good at it." She took a cautious bite, and her eyes widened. It was warm, soft, and full of flavor. The taste seemed to spread through her whole body, just like the warmth of the bed had. "This is..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Comfort," again. Evan laughed. "Exactly. You're starting to get it." After they finished eating, they walked toward the repair docks. Zara stopped suddenly when she noticed a group of humans gathered around a musician playing a strange stringed instrument. The notes were soft and gentle, like the hum of a starship but warmer. "They stop working to listen?" Zara asked in surprise. "Yeah," Evan said. "Sometimes you have to stop and enjoy something. Music doesn't keep you alive, but it makes life worth living." She frowned slightly. "In my crew, if you stopped working without reason, you were seen as wasting time." Evan shrugged. Different cultures. Humans think joy is just as important as survival. They spent the rest of the morning moving between shops and work areas. Evan seemed to know almost everyone they passed. He greeted people by name, asked about their families, and even helped a merchant fix a display stand for free. Zara noticed something about him. He didn't act like helping was a burden. It was just normal. By the afternoon, they returned to Evan's quarters. Zara sat on the couch while he worked at his desk. She was quiet, thinking about everything she had seen that day. "You're very different from my people," she said finally. "How so?" Evan asked, not looking up from his work. "You give without expecting payment. You share warmth, food, and music. My people would think that is risky." Evan set down his tools and looked at her. "Maybe it is, but we figure if you share what you have, someone else will share with you when you need it." Zara considered that. "And if they do not?" He smiled faintly. "Then you helped someone for no reason, except that it was the right thing to do." The words stayed with her for the rest of the evening. When it was time to sleep, Evan again offered her the bed. This time she didn't hesitate. As she lay under the warm blankets, she realized that in just one day, she had learned more about humans than in all her years traveling the stars. They were not just survivors, they were builders of comfort, connection, and trust. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe her people had been missing something important all along. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater. Zara lay in the bed, the thick blankets wrapped around her. The warmth settled into her body, and for the first time in her life, she felt completely still. She tried to remember the last time she had rested without being cold, but there was no memory to find. On her own ship, even when she slept, the cold metal pressed through her thin bedding. Her muscles were always tight, her mind always half awake in case of danger. But here, in this human's room, her body was relaxed in a way she had never known. Her silver eyes traced the patterns in the blanket. She could smell faint traces of soap in the fabric. She could hear the distant hum of life on the station, but it was far away, safe. Her thoughts drifted to the past 2 days. She remembered the warm food at the cafe, the music in the marketplace, and the way humans stopped what they were doing just to enjoy something beautiful. She remembered Evan's words about comfort making a person stronger. It felt strange to believe such things. Her people saw rest as a weakness. They believed that if you stopped moving, stopped working, you would be left behind. But maybe there was a different kind of strength, one that came from taking care of yourself. Evan's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Still awake?" he asked from the couch on the other side of the room. "Yes," she replied softly. "Too warm? Too soft?" His tone was playful. Zara considered the question. "It is both warm and soft, but not too much. It feels safe." "That's the goal," Evan said. "Humans sleep better when we feel safe." Zara was quiet for a moment before saying, "I am not used to feeling safe." The room went silent after that, but it was not uncomfortable. Evan didn't press her for more. She was grateful for that. Eventually, her eyes grew heavy, and she drifted into sleep. When she woke, it was to the smell of something cooking. She sat up, blinking against the light coming in through the small window. The warmth of the blankets still clung to her, and she almost didn't want to leave. In the corner, Evan was standing at a small cooking unit. flipping something in a pan. "Morning," he said when he noticed her. "Hungry?" "Yes," she admitted, surprising herself. Usually she could go half a day without thinking about food, but now the smell made her stomach growl. Evan placed a plate in front of her. On it were small, golden-brown cakes with a drizzle of something sweet. "Pancakes," he said. "Human breakfast classic." Zara took a bite and paused. The taste was light and fluffy, and the sweetness was unlike anything in her ration packs. "Your people put this much effort into food every morning?" He shrugged. "Not always, but when we can, yes. It's a way of starting the day right." After breakfast, Evan checked the repair schedule for her ship. "They're still working on your energy converters," he told her. "Might be 2 more days before you can leave." Zara nodded. Normally, being stuck in one place would make her anxious. Her instinct was to keep moving, to avoid staying in one location for too long. But here, she didn't mind. They decided to explore more of the station. Evan took her to the observation deck, a massive glass wall that looked out into the black of space. Dozens of ships moved in and out of the docking lanes, their lights blinking like distant stars. Zara pressed a hand to the glass. "I have seen many stars," she said quietly, "but not from a place like this." Evan looked out with her. "It's different when you're not just passing by. Sometimes it's worth stopping to look." She turned her head toward him. "Is that why humans build places like this? So you can stop and look?" "Partly," he said, "and partly because we like making a home, even in the middle of nowhere." Those words stayed in her mind as they walked through the station. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs of people trying to make the place feel alive. Plants in the corners, murals on the walls, warm lights instead of cold white ones. It was the opposite of her own ship, where every surface was bare metal and nothing was placed unless it served a practical purpose. By evening, they returned to Evan's quarters. Zara sat on the couch while he repaired a small device. "Evan," she said suddenly, "do you think my people are wrong?" He didn't look up. "Wrong about what?" "About living only for survival. About never stopping to rest or enjoy anything." He set down his tools and thought for a moment. "I don't think they're wrong for wanting to survive. That's important. But maybe they're missing out on the things that make survival worth it." Zara considered this. "And you think warmth, food, music, comfort, these are what make it worth it?" Evan smiled. "For humans? Absolutely. For others? Maybe. It's something else. But I think everyone needs something that makes them feel alive, not just alive." That night, Zara returned to the bed. She slid under the blankets and let the warmth settle over her again. But this time, she didn't just feel safe. She felt welcome. It was a feeling she had never known before. As she closed her eyes, she wondered if maybe this one night in a human bed wasn't just comfort. It was the beginning of something she didn't yet understand. The next morning, Zara woke before Evan. She lay still for a moment, listening to the steady hum of the heater and the faint rhythm of his breathing from the couch. It was strange. Her instincts told her she should be up, moving, working. But here there was no rush. She got out of bed and stood by the small window. Outside, the station's docking bay was waking up. Cargo drones moved in neat lines, ships came and went, and station lights shifted from night mode to day mode. Evan stirred and sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he said, his voice still sleepy. Zara nodded. "I was watching the station." "Wake up," he smiled. "It's like a little city in space. Want to see more of it today?" "Yes," she said. "I want to understand how humans live here." They left his quarters and made their way to the central plaza. The space was alive, with activity. Vendors were opening their stalls, setting out goods, shiny tools, colorful fabrics, and food from a dozen different worlds. Evan stopped at a stand selling bright yellow fruit. He bought two and handed one to her. "Try it. It's called a star pear." She bit into it carefully. The sweet juice surprised her, and she blinked. "It tastes like sunlight? If sunlight could be eaten?" Evan laughed. "That's one way to put it." As they walked, Zara noticed how often Evan greeted people. He nodded to engineers, waved at merchants, and even stopped to chat with a cleaner who was sweeping the walkway. "You know everyone?" she asked. "Not everyone," he said. "But it's nice to know your neighbors. Makes the place feel smaller, safer." That word, safe, had been coming up often since she met him. For her people, safety came from staying distant, not getting too close to others. But humans seemed to think the opposite. Later, Evan took her to a workshop. Inside, humans were repairing old equipment, laughing as they worked. A young woman waved at them. "Evan, this the new friend you've been talking about?" she asked. "This is Zara," Evan said. "She's here while her ship's getting fixed." The woman smiled warmly. "Welcome. If you ever need tools or parts, this is the place." Zara nodded politely, unsure how to respond to such friendliness. Evan rolled up his sleeves. "I promised I'd help them today. You can stay and watch if you want." Zara stayed, curious. She watched as Evan and the others worked together without arguing over credit or reward. When one person struggled, another stepped in to help without being asked. She found herself asking, "Why do you all work together like this? Are you paid?" "Sometimes," Evan said. "But here it's more about keeping the station running. If one system fails, everyone feels it, so we all pitch in." Zara thought about her own crew. They worked together too, but only because each job depended on the other. If someone failed, they were quickly replaced. Here it seemed different. People helped not because they had to, but because they wanted to. At midday, they went to the station's garden sector. Zara stopped in surprise. A wide, open space stretched before her, filled with green plants, small trees, and flowers in colors she had never seen before. Artificial sunlight filtered down from panels above, and the air smelled fresh. "This is not what I expected inside a space station," she said. Evan smiled. "Humans like to bring a little bit of nature with us, even in space. It helps us feel connected to home." They walked along a narrow path, and Zara reached out to touch the leaves of a small tree. "It is warm," she said softly. "Alive." "That's the point," Evan replied. "Life reminds us why we work so hard to survive out here." For a moment. Zara stood quietly, feeling the life in the garden around her. She realized that in all her years of traveling, she had never stopped to notice something just because it was beautiful. That evening, they returned to Evan's quarters. Zara sat on the couch while he prepared dinner. "Evan," she said suddenly, "do humans ever fear that their kindness will be taken advantage of?" He thought about it as he stirred the food. "Sure, sometimes people do take advantage. But we don't let that stop us from trying. If we close ourselves off, we lose the good along with the bad." She nodded slowly. "My people believe trust is a weakness, but maybe it is a strength too." Evan looked over at her. "Trust is risky, but it's what makes real friendships possible." The word friendship felt heavy in her mind. She had traveled with many people before, but never thought of them as friends. They were crewmates, partners in survival, but not friends. After dinner, Evan pulled a small music player from the shelf. "Want to hear something?" he asked. She nodded, and he pressed a button. Soft, slow music filled the room. The notes were calm, almost like a voice telling a story without words. "This is human music for relaxing," he explained. "We have music for work, for celebration, for sadness, for almost anything." Zara closed her eyes and listened. For the first time in a long while, she let her guard down completely. When the music ended, she opened her eyes and said, "I am learning that humans do many things that are not necessary for survival, but they make life feel different, fuller." Evan smiled. "Now you're starting to see it." That night, as Zara lay in the warm bed again, she thought about everything she had seen: the greetings, the teamwork, the garden, the music. Humans lived in a way that her people might never understand, but she was beginning to see why they were known for thriving in even the harshest corners of the galaxy, and she couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, she wanted to keep learning their ways. The next morning, Zara woke before Evan again. She sat on the edge of the bed thinking. For days now, he had shared his food, his warmth, and his time with her. He had asked for nothing in return. In her culture, such kindness without exchange was almost unheard of. The Velnari believed every action had to be balanced, a trade for a trade, a favor for a favor. Yet Evan seemed to help simply because he wanted to. She decided she could not leave without giving him something in return. But what could she offer a human who seemed to have everything he needed? Her mind went to the small case hidden in her ship's storage compartment, a case she rarely opened. Inside was a Velnari star map crystal passed down through her family. It contained hidden routes through uncharted sectors, known only to a few. To share it was to trust someone completely. Zara had never shown it to anyone outside her people. But she felt different now. When Evan woke, she was already dressed and standing by the door. "You're up early," he said, yawning. "I need to go to my ship," she replied. "There is something I wish to bring you." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" "No," she said with the smallest smile. "You should be curious." They walked to her docking bay. The repair crew had finished replacing the damaged energy converters, and the Starling's echo hummed softly, ready for travel. She stepped inside, the familiar cold of her ship surrounding. Her Evan followed, shivering slightly. "It's freezing in here." "This is normal for my people," she said as she knelt by a storage compartment. She opened it carefully, revealing a small, polished metal case. The case was plain, but its surface caught the light in a strange way, like it was holding a piece of the stars inside. "What's that?" Evan asked. She held it in both hands. "A piece of my family's history. And now, I think, it should be yours." Back in Evan's quarters, she set the case on the table and opened it. Inside was a crystal sphere, faintly glowing with shifting patterns of light. Tiny lines of light moved inside it like rivers of stars. Evan leaned closer. "It's beautiful. What is it?" "It is a Velnari star map crystal," she explained. "It holds routes through space that are not recorded in any public charts. Shortcuts, safe passages, hidden paths. My people guard these closely. To share one is rare." Evan's eyes widened. "And you're giving this to me?" "Yes," she said simply, "because you have given me something my people do not understand. Warmth, comfort, trust." He looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "Zara, I don't know what to say." "Then say nothing," she replied. "Just keep it safe." For the rest of the day, they carried on as usual, walking through the marketplace, sharing meals, and stopping by the garden sector again. But something felt different between them now. Evan treated the star map crystal with care, storing it in a small padded case in his quarters. When he looked at it, his expression was thoughtful, almost protective. That evening, as they sat eating a simple dinner, Evan said, "You know, this crystal isn't just a gift. It's a sign that you trust me. That means more than the roots inside it." Zara nodded slowly. "Among my people, trust is rare, but you have shown me that it can be given freely and still be strong." Evan smiled. "Trust goes both ways. I've trusted you since the moment I helped carry that plasma coil." She tilted her head. "Even though you did not know me?" Especially because I didn't know you, he said. That's when trust matters most. Later that night, Zara lay in the warm bed again, staring at the ceiling. The soft hum of the heater and the faint music from Evan's player filled the air. She thought about how strange it was that she had arrived here only to fix her ship. Now, she wasn't sure she wanted to leave so quickly. The Velnari way was to move on, never stay too long in one place, never grow attached. But she had grown attached to the warmth, the food, the music, the garden, and to the human who had shown her all of it. She closed her eyes and wondered what her next journey would look like, if she would travel alone again, or if there might be a new path she had never considered before. The next day, the repair chief informed her, "Your ship is ready to go, Captain Zira. She's running better than ever." Evan glanced at her. "So, I guess this is where you leave." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked around the station, the bustling marketplace, the green garden, the friendly faces, and then at Evan. "I have a choice," she said finally. "I can go back to the cold paths I know, or I can stay a little longer." Evan smiled faintly. "Well, the guest bed is still open." She returned the smile. "Then maybe I will stay, at least until I learn a few more human ways." That night, she placed her travel pack in the corner of Evan's quarters, beside the case that now held the star map crystal. It felt strange, but good, to leave it there as if it belonged. As she settled into the bed again, she realized that in giving Evan the crystal, she had also given him something else, her decision to trust. And in return, he had given her something she had never thought she needed, a place she could call home, even if just for now. Zara stood at the large window of the observation deck, watching the ships come and go. Docking lights flashed, engines flared, and cargo drones zipped across the bay. Normally, this sight filled her with a familiar pull, the urge to move on, to keep wandering the stars. But now something inside her had changed. She didn't just see ships leaving. She saw homes in motion, lives carrying pieces of comfort with them. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe her journey didn't have to be a lonely one. Evan walked up beside her, carrying 2 steaming cups. "Hot tea," he said, handing one to her. She took it carefully. The cup was warm in her hands, and the scent was fresh and calming. "You humans always have something warm to give," she said. "That's kind of our thing," he replied with a grin. They stood in silence for a moment, sipping tea and watching the ships. Finally, Evan said, "Your ship's ready. You could leave today if you wanted." "I know," Zara said softly. "And?" he asked. She turned her silver eyes toward him. "I have been thinking about where I belong. For most of my life, I thought it was nowhere, that the galaxy was too wide to ever feel like home." Evan waited, letting her speak at her own pace. "But here," she continued, "I have found warmth, food, music, trust, and a human who carries these things everywhere he goes. I want to see the galaxy your way." A smile spread across his face. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "Yes," she said. "If you will have me, I will travel with you." That afternoon, they began preparing for the journey. Evan's own small shuttle was docked 2 levels below her ship. It was well maintained but clearly built for short-range travel. "If we're going to travel together," Zara said, "we should take my ship. It has longer range and more storage." Evan ran a hand over the cold metal of the Starling's Echo. "It's not exactly warm in here." She gave a small smile. "Then you can teach me how to change that." For the next few hours, they worked side by side, fitting the ship with a small heating system from the station's surplus store. They added thicker bedding to the sleeping quarters and stocked the galley with real food instead of ration cubes. Evan also insisted on adding small touches, plants in pots, a music player wired into the ship's comm system, and even a shelf for books. Zara watched him, curious about his need to make the space feel alive. "You humans," she said, "turn even a ship into a home." "That's because we take our homes with us," he replied. "Doesn't matter if it's a planet, a station, or a ship. It can still be a place you belong." Before they left, Zara took him back to the garden sector one last time. They stood among the trees, the artificial sunlight casting soft shadows. "This place," she said quietly, "is where I first understood what you were trying to show me. That survival is not enough. That life must have something more." Evan looked at her. "And you're ready to keep looking for that something more out there?" "Yes," she said, "but not alone." The day of departure arrived. They stood together in the cockpit of the Starling's Echo, the star map crystal placed carefully in its new holder on the control panel. "Coordinates?" Evan asked. Zara entered a route from the crystal, a hidden path through a quiet sector, filled with bright nebulae. "We will start here. It is beautiful. My people avoid it because it is far from the trade lanes. But you might see it differently." He grinned. "Sounds perfect." The docking clamps released with a gentle shudder, and the ship drifted away from the station. Outside, the vast black of space opened before them, dotted with stars. As they cleared the traffic lanes, Evan activated the ship's faster-than-light drive. The stars stretched into long, glowing lines, and the ship leapt forward. During the journey, Evan showed her how humans navigated by more than just coordinates. He taught her how to read the stories in old star charts, how to name constellations, and how to record their own travel logs with details not just about the systems they visited, but about how they felt while visiting. In return, Zara taught him Velnari scanning techniques and how to read the faint energy trails of ships that had passed through an area days earlier. She also shared stories of her own travels, places she had seen but never stayed long enough to truly know. Over shared meals and quiet hours in the cockpit, they began to build something neither of them had expected, a partnership not just for travel, but for life among the stars. One evening, as they passed through the edge of a shimmering nebula, Evan leaned back in his chair. "You know, I think this is the first time I've been on a long journey with someone who actually enjoys the ride as much as the destination." Zara looked out at the glowing clouds of gas and light. "Before I met you, I did not enjoy the ride at all. It was only movement. Now, it feels different." "Because of the warm bed," he teased. She smiled faintly. "Because of the warm human who offered it." They both laughed, the sound blending with the steady hum of the ship. Days turned into weeks, and each new stop brought its own surprises. Small outposts where humans and aliens worked together, abandoned stations reclaimed by nature, quiet, planets with skies full of strange colors. Everywhere they went, Evan added something small to the ship, a seashell from a water world, a painted charm from a trading post, a jar of fragrant herbs from a garden moon. Zara began to see the Starling's Echo not as a cold vessel, but as a living record of their journey together. And one night, as they drifted in the calm between systems, she realized she no longer thought of herself as a wanderer without a home. Her home was here, in this ship, with this human. When the star map crystal projected its next route across the console, Evan glanced at her. "Where to next?" Zara touched the glowing path with her fingertips. "Somewhere neither of us has been. Somewhere we can make our own story." He nodded, smiling. "Let's go see it together." The Starling's Echo turned slowly, engines warming, and then surged forward into the unknown. Two travelers from different worlds, bound by trust, shared warmth, and a new kind of journey neither had imagined when they first met.